We are live.
Good Wednesday afternoon, everybody out there in Builders Land. We are fired up today. We are going to spare you the usual kickoff shenanigans. We've got the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Brad Smith and Brian Williamson on today. What's going to be an extremely impactful call. I would say there is no time for warming up your fingers today. Get out your pens, get out your papers. We are going to have lots of meats and potatoes and direct nuggets to directly impact the organization that you all out there are trying to build. And you couldn't be hearing from two of the more premier, awesome human beings that we get to do life with here at Symmetry. So much appreciation to you, B-Dubs, and to you as always, Brad. Great seeing you last week, buddy. I'm going to hush up and get out of your way and turn it over to you, B-Dubs.
Thank you, sir. And probably not a better place to start than quoting AC/DC. They sing about the highway to hell. I want to talk to you about the road to success for a minute, right? Today's topic with senior partner and advisory board member Brad Smith is 3 essential keys to agent activation. You're on a builder's call, and being on a builder's call means that you want to build, that you want to learn tools and success tips on how can I build more effectively. And one of the key parts of that, as you all know in this business, is activating an agent. And we don't want you on the AC/DC highway to hell and struggling with results. We want you on the Symmetry road to success. And the Symmetry road stands for recruit, onboard, activate, and develop. And you're going to hear more about that in the coming days as we continue to build out clarity and tools and trainings and systems to support those things. And today's focus is specifically on the activate portion of that, right? So when we think about agent activation, many of you are thinking, how do I just help this new writer get to 6 applications? Or how do I help this writer write 1 application? And we're just asking the question. We don't want you to, go crazy and marry this yet, but just thinking through, what if activation is a bit bigger and broader than we've thought, right? What if we think about activation as the process of coaching an agent from their first application all the way through the achievement of their initial income goals for a period of 90 days, right? When I went to Marine Corps boot camp, it wasn't an approach that would be how we think about activation, right? 6 applications and then they're activated. It was more like, hey, you've got 13 weeks of boot camp and then you've got 4 weeks of infantry school, right? So there's an extended period of time where we're making sure that these things are instilled and ingrained, right? So we're excited to talk to you today about some specifics around what are 3 essential keys to agent activation. Now, what we're not saying is that there's not 20 essential keys. We don't know really how many essential keys, but what I do know is after talking to Mr. Smith, who we get to hear from today, talking to a lot of our leaders, we do know that if you do not do these 3 things, you will not activate an agent. If you do not learn how to do these 3 things, that's why they are essential keys to agent activation. Agent activation won't happen. We want to see that happening with more effectiveness, with more intentionality. So I'm really excited for you to learn from Brad and just get some thoughts that we've got for you today during this call. So Brad, we're going to start with number 1. As we were talking about this, the first thing that you said that stood out to me was we need to get really good at helping new agents create habits. Now, I want to quote 2 people before I hand the mic over for the first part of the call. I want to quote Mark Twain, and I'm going to quote you. Right? Mark Twain said, man, giving up smoking is the easiest thing in the world. I should know because I've done it thousands of times. Right? Sometimes habits are hard to break, right? And so learning to create, we're saying with that, right? Habits are powerful. Habits are powerful things. And what you said yesterday, as we were kind of prepping for this, is something so powerful and so simple. You said 12 times in 12 days is different than 12 times in 12 months. And so I'm excited for these leaders today to learn about why is it important to help for people on this call to get really good at helping new agents create habits? Let's talk about that for a few minutes.
Yeah, I mean, from the very beginning, I always, like when I started to recruit, when Matt and I started to recruit, we weren't just recruiting agents, we were recruiting builders. And I'm just not a big fan of spinning my wheels. I don't know that there's anybody on this call that are big fans of spinning your wheels. And sometimes recruiting can feel that way. You're placing ads, you're doing interviews, you're doing three-way phone calls, and nothing happens. Why aren't they writing business? Maybe they write an app or two or three, and then they don't write anymore. And I think one of the biggest reasons, because we're not helping the agent to create habits in this business. To me, activating an agent is not about getting to write a couple apps. It's just not. Like, that's not what I'm recruiting for. I'm recruiting to have long-term consistent writers. One of the biggest benefits to this business that I've seen is stair-step growth. It's not like these big momentum swings. It's just like steady stair-step growth. That's because you get an agent, you can get leads on a weekly basis. They have a certain amount of activity every single week. They write business, and now you recruit another agent, and it just continues to compound. But if you have a revolving door in your agency, it's probably because they've not developed habits in the business. And that's actually pretty hard to do. Like I try to, like when I started going to the gym the first time, it's really hard if you're trying to get yourself motivated to get out of bed, to drive to the gym, and to imagine lifting weights or getting on the treadmill. It's kind of a miserable thought when you haven't done it in years. So the habit that I created just to make it easy in my mind was to drive to the gym and get to the parking lot. That's all I imagined, was I'm just going to get to the parking lot. And then when I get to the parking lot, I'm going to walk in. And then when I walk in, I'm now in the environment. I've got music, and I see other people on the treadmill. I see other people lifting weights, and just naturally, I'm going to start exercising. So, but if I didn't create the habit of driving to the gym, then I would never have gotten in the habit of actually exercising and working out. So, one of the things that I do to help agents to create those habits is, first, I've got to give them a plan. I've got to give them, and I do this in the recruiting process, I let them know what the next 90 days is going to look like. It's very clear. Like we figure out, what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? How's that going to change your life? Can you imagine it? I get them to imagine, what would life look like with this new income, with this new purpose. Then they can envision it. So now they want this.
No, this is good. I'm going to put a pin in this real quick, because we're going to come back to this tool towards the end of our time, but I want to show people, pull back the curtain on your magic, some of your unconscious competence, as we call it around here, right? So this is really important, what you said, and everybody write down that first step is the plan, right? And casting a vision, because for change to happen, three things need to be true. Someone needs to be dissatisfied with their present reality. They also then need to see a vision of the future. And this is what Brad's talking about right now. What's that? Where is this going in 90 days, right? And that's really important, probably, by the way, not, as the third thing says, first steps, and we're going to come back to this later, not the first 50 steps, not the first year, but what Brad's talking about in terms of excellent leadership recognizes that you need to have that vision in place for people to change. If those three things are in place, they'll be greater than the resistance. I just want you to, right, as builders, the thing that differentiates you is you understand why you do what you do. Without understanding why you do what you do or how things work, it makes building infinitely more difficult from a leadership perspective. So back to you. So Brad, you're talking about activation. You said the plan is important, giving them that vision. Continue on.
Yeah, if I just tell them, here's the work involved, that's not exciting. It's just work. So, but if I attach it to, can you imagine how it's going to feel in 90 days when you've got this consistent income coming in? Can you imagine how it's going to affect your family, how your wife or husband's going to feel about it? Can you imagine how it's going to feel looking in the mirror that you've started to dug out of the situation that you're in? And it becomes exciting. They want that result. So then we lay out this plan, and it's a very simple plan. This is what your week needs to look like, and maybe we gradually work into that. The first 30 days, this is what you need to be doing every single week. I do this in my recruiting process. I'm not doing it after I've recruited. I'm trying to do a game plan session with them. In the recruiting process, this is the result you can get. This is what it's going to take. Can you commit to this schedule? Can you commit to getting leads every single week? Not inconsistently. Inconsistent resources lead to inconsistent activity, inconsistent results, inconsistent emotions. You're on a roller coaster, and that's not going to work. I tell them that in the very first time I'm talking to them, this is what it's going to take. And they commit to that. They say, I can commit to this kind of activity. So then when it gets to that time that they've got contracted and they've got, they're ready to do it, we bring this plan back out to them and they're ready to go. I don't have to convince them to buy leads. I don't have to convince them to do the work. They've already, it's been the plan from the very beginning. So then
just real quick, just so we're following again, this is classic Smith system expertise here. So you've got your plan, you've got the commitment to the plan. And actually I learned that from you. That was a step that I was skipping a lot of times in conversations, even in my coaching work, is like, okay, are you really committed to this? And then, keep going on to the creation of habits and the process. How does that look for you?
Yeah, so we set the goal is step one. We create a plan, a specific plan for their goal. We ask them to make a commitment to that plan, to the activity, to buying the leads, to the certain amount of dials, to all the things that it takes. And then the fourth thing is the consistent coaching and accountability. That's how we get them to create the habits, is we have them show up to a small group. We do specific coaching every single week. They're getting better around the areas that they're weak. They've got the camaraderie. They feel like, and I know we're going to talk about the 4 stages of learning, but this is very key because in this phase, that, all of us have learned something new, whether you're learning a new language, you're learning a new career, you're learning whatever you're learning, you go through these 4 phases. And there's a lot of people on this call that you saw the corporate overview video, you got on an interview and you thought, this sounds awesome. This sounds easy. And then, so you're in the unconsciously incompetent phase. You don't know what you're doing. It sounds easy. It looks like, yeah, I could do this. I mean, I remember doing that, thinking, man, this sounds like, I actually watched the guy that recruited me. I watched him do some presentations, and I thought, man, I think I could do a better job than him. I didn't know what I didn't know, so I was unconsciously incompetent. And then once I got contracted, I get a stack of leads. I'm nervous. I can't book appointments. I'm thinking, man, this is a lot harder than I thought. Like, this takes work. So then I'm quickly moving to the second phase of conscious incompetence. Now I know that I suck. This is work. This is harder than I thought it was going to be. And that's the quitting phase. That's what most people get to. That first week, they didn't have the right expectations, and it doesn't feel good to be bad at something, and we quit. If we don't have an environment for new agents when they feel that we call it the pit of despair. If we don't have an environment where we're not just training them, this is where I messed up from the beginning, is I thought they just needed more training. That does not get people out of the pit of despair. That doesn't get them out of this place. They feel like, this is going to take way longer than I thought. I'm not going to be able to stick to this plan. I'm not going to make money as fast as I need to. I need to go look for a job. Training them is not going to get them out of that. It's feeling like, you got to remind them of the vision. They've got to feel like they're not alone, that what they're going through is normal. And so doing this on a one-on-one, I can't apprentice somebody through that. I've got to do it in more of a small group environment so they can feel like I'm not by myself, and they can learn from the group. And that's what every week, I remember Jeremy Whitaker, when I recruited Jeremy, he was kind of on an island for 3 weeks until I got him to be a part of a small group. And I don't know that he would have quit, but I thought, this guy's gonna quit. He's pretty relentless. So I don't know that he would have, but most people would have. And showing up and saying, okay, here's what I'm struggling with. How can I get better? And then leaving that meeting with, here's what I'm going to commit to. This is very important. if somebody is committing to a team of people that I'm going to show up, here's what you can count on me for. That next week, he said, I would not have done that activity if I didn't know that the next week I was going to get back on a call with this group. And I was going to have to tell them I didn't follow through. I didn't do what I told you I was going to do.
It's really good. So let's land on this first point. I don't want to move past it yet because I want to really make sure. We said one of the 3 essential keys to agent activation is getting really good at helping agents create new habits. And what I heard you say was that a key part of that for you, I mean, we talked about the vision part, the plan part, but it's really happening in that coaching group space. And some of the things you're doing in that coaching group space are, for example, making sure that by the next session that I know if I'm in your base shop, if you're my mentor, I need to make sure that I'm going to come back the following week and have followed through with that. So you're kind of creating an environment where, naturally speaking, I'm going to be more likely to go do that activity, not out of, and this is what we have to be careful out, not out of some like shame culture, like, hanging my head, I didn't do it, but out of a desire to say, hey, this is really what I want, So summarize for us before we go on, what are some of the key things that you see about specifically this habit creation piece from a, leadership coaching standpoint, just as we land?
What's the question?
So when you think about, we said one of the essential keys is helping agents create new habits. What I heard you say is you do that through the group setting. What are some other ways what does that look like for you in practice to help an agent create a habit versus just learning something? How do you help agents create habits? Tell us a little bit more.
Well, they have to have complete clarity. If there's any fogginess in what they need to do, they're probably not going to do it. I mean, you imagine getting in a Lamborghini that can go 230 miles an hour, but you can't see past 10 feet in front of you because you got fog. You're not going to get out of second gear. It doesn't matter what it's capable of. You have to have complete clarity in where you're going. And so giving people a plan, making sure they know that this is what your week should look like. Can you commit to this? Do you believe this is possible? Should we adjust this? If they see the plan, but they don't actually believe that I can do this, then we need to adjust it because they have to believe that they can do it. And then you've got that weekly coaching and accountability, not an apprenticeship level, not on a one-on-one, but in a small group so that you can maximize your time. But I think those are, belief, vision, clarity, and regular accountability.
Excellent. Again, these are all things that you all will want to explore some more. And we're going to get into that in a minute, make sure that everybody knows where can you actually dive in and go a bit deeper. All right. So if the first essential key is that helping agents create new habits, the second one is really becoming really good at coaching versus one-way communication only. And Brad, you did a great job of walking us through this. And for some of you on this call, we had a great first Key Leader Academy. Some of you were part of that. Chime in if you were. We talked about this developing others square because it's so important to learn how to lead well, to use this model of leadership, right? And the thing we want to focus on today during our time is when it comes to agent activation, you cannot just be the sage from the stage telling people what to do one way and being the directive leader. You must be the guide by the side, helping them get there as a coach. And so, Brad, why don't you talk for a few minutes about why this is so essential to agent activation and becoming that coach, having the push-pull relationship versus just the telling. Let's talk about this for a few.
So by nature, I'm good at directive leadership and delegating. By nature, it doesn't come naturally for me to coach and collaborate. Well, collaborating, I'm pretty good at, but just my voices, I think you've taught me that all the voices kind of by nature are good at one or two of these, right? So the natural thing for me to do was when I would recruit somebody, I'd tell them, okay, go to the website, watch these videos, I'd play the traffic cop, point them in the right direction, and then I'd delegate and I'd skip the coaching and collaboration. And I remember, I've known, and there's a lot of people on this call that have known about the 4 stages of learning for years. I knew about it for 20 years, but I never understood how to coach people through the stage that they're in. Because somebody that's brand new, directive leadership is exactly what you want. You want to direct them, tell them where to go, watch this video, go to Summit, go to the base camp. When you're done, get back to me. I like the base shop mentor that Edward had when I came on board. He did it perfectly. He said, I need to get on the call with you and do 10 minutes of coaching on the phone before you make dials, but I can't do that until you get leads. So when can you get leads so that I can do 10 minutes of coaching? And I said, well, I can do it today. Okay, what time? So we can line up a call. I'll do it by 2:00. Okay, so at 2:30, I'm going to call you and I'm going to do 10 minutes of coaching. He calls me and we do 10 minutes of coaching, and, low and slow, and, be a $12 hour employee. Don't have commission, Brad. Just give me a few pointers. Okay, so now I want you to get on the phone and call, and I want you to make 10 contacts. See, very simple assignments. It's very directive. When you make 10 contacts, you should have 2 appointments. If you have less than that, stop. Don't burn through leads. Call me. We'll do a little coaching. If you book 2 out of 10, keep going. So now I'm sitting there. I'm like, I know he's waiting for me. I have to text him. So now I got to get on the phone, and I probably wouldn't have at that point, but this guy's waiting for me. So that's directive leadership. But then when I do it and I'm not good at it, and I don't book the number of appointments, I enter into the second phase of conscious incompetence. Directive leadership is not ideal in that phase, because now I'm in the pit of despair. I don't need training. Brian Delaney, when we were talking about this for the first time with Giant, Brian said that pit of despair, that guy down at the bottom with the ladder, put a big $sign right there. That's where money is made in this business. Most people stop at this point. They are constantly recruiting the next person, spinning their wheels. And they don't understand that this phase right here is where the money is made. If you can get somebody to move from the pit of despair, the conscious incompetence, over into conscious competence. Like, I learned to drive a car with a stick shift, and it looked easier than it was. And I remember sitting there at the stoplight on a hill, and the car died, and I could not get the car started. And there's cars that are honking, and my dad's getting nervous. He's in the passenger seat. And I'm like, but eventually I could drive. I had to think, I got to look left, got to look right. I got to shift the gear, got to put my clutch down. And I'm thinking everything, but I'm capable now of going from point A to point B. Same thing happens in this business, where now I know how to dial. I know how to book appointments. I can cover objections. I'm thinking through every single part of it, but I can make money. And eventually you get to this fourth phase where you can do it in your sleep. You're unconsciously competent. All of us have been there, right? Now you're driving the car, and you got your cell phone in one hand, your coffee in the other hand, you're steering with your leg, and you don't remember any part about going from point A to point B because you're unconsciously competent. That's where wealth is created in this business. It's like printing money at that point. And now you've got an activated agent that will print you money. They're good to go. They're on their own. They're consistent. They've got the habits. And so many people miss that.
Yeah.
So
let's let me ask one more question, and then or make a comment, ask a question, and then I want to do a shift into just a resource for people to work on these skills, because this is a skill set that you must learn. So we said this is an essential key to agent activation, is your ability to learn how to not just be a one-way communicator, but to be a push-pull coach, to be a guide by the side. The return on investment for just giving one-way communication is information and efficiency, right? And consistent message, right? You can be inspirational, you can be efficient, but it's unlikely that you're going to see a lot of transformation. And certainly we would say for agent activation to happen well, you've got to learn how to pull the car off to the side of the road and to have a conversation with the passenger. Hey, Brad, I know you, man, let's check in on your plan. It's the middle of the week. Hey, describe for me the reasons for, your challenge with whatever, fill in the blank, the activity that you need to have this week or whatever it is, right? And then you actually stop and pause and listen and draw that person out. Like, coaching creates ownership. Directive leadership creates compliance, meaning people will do what you tell them to do if they're willing to. But coaching creates ownership. It's only when you coach and have that push-pull And a lot of times in the building side of this business, we overuse one-way communication, right? And thankfully we have expert coaches here that know how to train this stuff. But why is that so important, Brad? Just give us a final thought on this two-way push-pull coaching part versus just one-way communication.
Well, I think you said it perfectly. You start playing the blame game. If I'm just being told what to do and it's not working, I'm going to push the blame onto my mentor or on the system. The leads don't work. The system doesn't work. But if I'm taking ownership, if I'm saying, here's what I'm going to commit to do, because we all know that activity fixes everything. I was told that so many times, I got so mad. Activity fixes any problem I have, activity fixes everything. But it was true. I am in control. When I own that, when I know that if I just do this work, I may not be good at it right now, but I'm going to get better. It does lead to ownership. And, I think everyone needs to feel like they have the control. They have the ability to get better. They have the ability to fix the problem that they're in. And yeah, coaching will give that to a person.
It's great. Well, one of the things I want to highlight before we get to the third essential key for activation is what the hard work that a lot of our 130s and agency owners put into Summit, because Summit is not just top-down information. This is really the best practices from the bottom up, right? This is how have the best leaders in this organization gotten to where they've gotten, and how can that save you a bunch of stress, time, energy, and money? And for those of you that are in the accelerate phase of Summit, you're going to have this module called Leadership 201. And so, by the way, to get to the accelerate phase, right, you're looking at once you're promoted to team leader, you'll unlock the accelerate phase. We can't give this to you ahead of time, but I'm sure for someone further down the road that has access to this, that you want to partner with them and do that learning with them, I'm sure they'd be happy to do that. But we have a whole skill block called Leadership 201, where Brian Delaney does the bulk of the heavy lifting in this module. And he goes into the secret of 5 and really talking about the simplicity of how do you create momentum around this secret of 5 principle. I'll leave you in suspense. We do a whole module on the push-pull coaching methodology, because coaching requires a mindset, a skill set, and a toolkit. And we're giving you all of these things. We've already put it in here. You've got to take the time to dig in. And if I were leading a group of key leaders on their way on their AO run, or team leaders, I'd be letting the tools do the heavy lifting and pulling up some of these modules and doing a whole coaching group around these principles and tools and checking in and not feeling like I have to reinvent the wheel. Then we've got this 4-step coaching guide, which is outstanding. Equipping, designed again. This one, Brian Delaney leads this module, as well as the 4-step coaching process. Right directly for this business, best in class content from best in class people, and it goes on and on, right? Lots of things that are not random, but they're put there intentionally so that you can actually learn what you need to learn when you need to learn it. So shameless plug. You need to learn. Let's just do a final review before we get in the national call, and we'll give the third essential key, right? The first thing, you've got to become really good at helping people create habits. The second thing is you need to become really good at coaching, not just directing. So being the guide by the side, not just the sage from the stage. Now, the last thing, and Brad, bring us home on this one, is just be a person who's easy to follow, right? When you think about what makes activating agents challenging, like, what is it? Sometimes the answer is in the mirror as a leader, right? I'm not easy to follow. Instead of providing the first steps, I'm providing the first 100 steps, right? So why don't you talk about that for the last couple minutes, and we'll land the plane.
Yeah, it couldn't be like the timing of this business, but you couldn't be in a better place. We're so much further along than when I started. There's training on everything. And at the same time, as good as that is, it can also feel overwhelming for new people. When I got started, I had an in-home outline and a 30-minute audio of Casey Watkins doing In the Home. That was the only training available. But what it did, and I wish I had way more, but what it did is made me think, first of all, this is pretty simple. It can't be that complicated if this is all the training I'm going to get. but I couldn't waste my time doing all these other things. It was like, okay, I listened to this audio 5 times. I've read through the script 5 times. The only thing left for me to do is work. You get in the phone. And I think we need to create that. Even though there's all this training available, we need to coach people in a way that we don't give them all the steps. Going back to what my base shop mentor, Edward's base shop mentor, when I recruited, he said, buy leads. That was the only thing he told me to do. Then it was, okay, book 10 appointments. I didn't have a clue how to do a presentation when I booked my first 6 appointments. I didn't even go through any training on how to do a presentation before I had 6 appointments for the very next day. It was just, here's the next step. Here's the next step. Here's the next step. Giving people assignments versus just dumping it on them and then wondering, why don't they work? Why are these people not working? I hear that all the time. Agency owners call me, why don't they work? Well, you're probably giving them too many things. Give them one or 2 things, assignments. Casey Watkins taught me this, and Brandon, give them the next thing, give them an assignment. And then when they do it, give them the next thing and give them the next thing. And eventually they start to create these habits and you'll start to see results.
That's right. Yes. I mean, just nailing it again, right? So we want to see, you're here on this call today because you've decided to make, to use Brad's language, you've made a commitment, right, to be part of this opportunity to make an impact and create a great income for you and your family, right? So you were dissatisfied, you saw the vision, and now, again, make sure that you're working with your mentor and mentors, you're working with your people to give those first steps. If those 3 things are there, they will be greater than the resistance, and you will be not only activated, but you're going to set yourself up for a development path that's going to lead to amazing results. So, Brad, we are at our national call time. We could not be more thankful for you, your influence, your investment in us today. Super grateful and happy to introduce Mr. Brandon and Mr. Casey for our national call. Over to you guys. Unless Spivey, you got anything else? Happy to have you jump in too.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
You bet. It's going good.
Thank you, Brian. I'll jump off. Thanks, guys.
Nice, Brad. Nice, B-Dub. Good stuff.
Always
Really
good,
good
Mr.
stuff.
Yeah.